Hello and welcome to another World of UX podcast. I'm your host, Darren Hood. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. Welcome, those of you listening or watching for the first time. Due to some scheduling constraints, some other challenges, yes, I do have a couple of old interviews in the hopper. I'm hoping to have some time to edit and present those in the very near future. But for now, the most fitting thing to do is for me to just go back into the Talk Circuit series. There are still some talks out there I have not shared that some people may not have heard. I'm even planning on sharing my TED Talk, which some people have never heard. It's not about UX, but it's applicable to UX if you look at it through a certain lens. Today, I'm going back 4 years into the past, and I'm going to share a talk that I delivered. I delivered it in multiple cases, but the one I'm going to share today was a talk that I delivered for a group called Students of UXD in 2021, where I spent some time. I was doing a series called Bubble Busters. We were 2 talks in on that. I don't think we did any more than 2 talks, but this one was meant to share some insights about UX education, how it should be done, how it should be structured. A little overlap there, not quite that redundant, but a little overlap. But the challenges, there's a lot of challenges associated with UX education, which we plan on talking about at length again on the show in the not too distant future. But today we're going to go back and share just the talk portion of this episode, if you will, this stop in the Talk Circuit series. So if you're looking to learn a little bit more about UX education, you're looking to understand a little bit more about how it's supposed to be done, you're looking to optimize your journey, your UX learning journey, there's a lot of information that will be presented in this talk that you will likely find helpful. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. See you at the end.
All right. Today, we are calling this overall series, I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, know that we refer to this as Bubble Busters. Before we even get into today's subject, because I don't think I had a deck to share last time. I think we just did everything in an extremely informal manner last time. Today, I'm going to be a bit more formal in that I've got a deck to walk through, and I want to have this takeaway for you to look at later. But before we even dive in, I just want to talk for one moment about Bubble Busters. And please know that all the bubble busting we are doing it for everyone's benefit. I am, as Julia mentioned in my intro, I'm extremely passionate about all things UX. But even more so than that, I have been helping to build people for a good 40 years. Practically, I'm older than I look. And I always want to see people do their absolute best. If you're already on a good path, good, we're going to help you to optimize that. If you're midway through, we're going to help you optimize that. If you've made a couple of wrong turns and run into a dead end, doesn't matter to me. We're going to optimize that. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands my passion for you, as well as my passion for the discipline. I want to see people be their absolute best. So if you hear me today, I gotta preface everything you're about to see, because I'm very, very passionate. Just saying that again. Please do not take my passion personally. I'm just passionate. So if I'm cleaning the floor, I'm passionate about it. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just a passionate guy. So I want to make sure we mention that, because there are going to be some things in here that are definitely going to bust some people's bubbles. But if you keep in mind that I'm doing it for your good, I'm always going to reel you back in and help you see what you need to do, where you need to go. I think it'll help to sort of ease the pain of the bubble busting. And I will be there to catch you when your bubble busts and you're coming back down to earth. So fair? Okay, I think so. Let's dive in to the message for this time, the topic, I should say. The topic for this bubble busting session is called The Problem with UX Education, with a subthought of how to optimize your learning journey. So we're going to be approaching UX education at large, and then but we're going to give you some plans, some things that you can do to make your learning journey the absolute best that it can be. We're going to save you some money, make sure that you're following the appropriate paths so that you're not running into too many pitfalls or try to eliminate the pitfalls altogether. If it was up to me, we're going to do some things to help everybody out here. So let's get into the content. As always, everybody doesn't know me, so just really quick, by way of introducing myself, on top of what Julia mentioned, I've been doing UX now totally full-time for over 23 years. I designed my first website in 95, was using principles that we now associate with UX today. So I'm a first-gen UXer. I was doing UX work when we had our old AOL floppy disks that were coming in the mail and things of that nature. So I've been around that long doing this kind of work. I've got a master's, UX-related master's from Syracuse. I've got a UX-related master's from Kent State University. Constantly speak right everywhere. It's why you see the World Usability Day logo, just in case you didn't know what that logo was to the far right. I speak globally. You can always find me on someone's podcast or speaking at a conference somewhere. I do a pretty good job of getting around, and it's all about spreading that passion and helping people to be their absolute best. You see a photo of my lovely wife, Angela, there in the middle. It's her birthday today, as a matter of fact. Just helping her out celebrate a little bit. One of our cats, we love cats. We have 4. That's Rocky, and there's a picture of Rocky from the Michigan Humane Society calendar a few years ago. I'm a big photographer. I love photography. If you ever want to talk photography, reach out to me to talk about photography. I am an award-winning photographer, and I am on the TEDx Detroit photography team as well. So cover a lot of ground there. Love bicycling. Actually lost 100 pounds, and 2/3 of that was due to bicycling. So if you're looking to lose some weight, I highly recommend bicycling. It's a big help. And I'm a big bowler. I used to be a professional bowler. I was a member of the PBA. I just turned in my card recently, and but I'm still the president of the bowling league, and I still make my rounds. And that's a picture from my first sanctioned 300 game there that you see. It's like, we're talking about UX, but I like to include some personal things so that we can see the human side of who it is that we're listening to and engaging with today. Just taking that a little bit further, here's a quick snapshot of my professional footprint. It shows you many of the places I have been, many of the places I have worked, many of the companies and organizations where I have either I've worked for the company, or I contributed to their initiatives, working on their websites, their products, whatever it might be. I've been around pretty much everywhere, all the way up to the Fortune 50. Pretty proud of that, pretty happy about that. And as mentioned, I'm also a professor at Kent State University. I'm a professor at Lawrence Technological University in the Metro Detroit area where I live. I'm about to become a professor at Michigan State University. And so one thing I want to throw this out here, because it's critical that we understand this today as I talk about education. I'm not just a first generation UX professional. I'm also an educator, to the extent that I am 5 classes away now from wrapping up my PhD in educational leadership. And then finally my educational journey, at least the formal one, will end. I'm happy to see that come to an end. No more homework, none of that stuff. So, but I am an educator, and I think it's important that people know and understand that, because anytime you're listening to somebody make a presentation, you need to understand what makes them them. What is it? Why should I listen to this person? How much weight should I ascribe to this person? And I'm hoping today that my 25 years, my 16 years full-time, the fact that I've worked for the largest digital design company in the world, Digitas LBI, as well as working for a lot of these wonderful companies that you see before you, as well as being an educator, helps give me some authorization, if you will, to talk about today's subject in a way that others may not. So that's it. All right, here we go. Everybody is on this call today because you have a desire, you have a passion for, you have an interest in being a user experience professional and advancing in your career. And everybody who is in UX always asks the question, and not just at the beginning, but it continues throughout your career. How do I advance? What can I do to get better? What can I do to learn more? What can I do to handle this UX thing? Because man, there sure is a lot going on out here. What can I do? I really need some help. I really need some direction. And the road that we're on pretty much looks like what you see on this screen here. It's a bunch of weird topsy-turvy roads and signs it's the shape of a caution sign, but it just has a question mark on it because we don't know where we're going a lot of times. And it can really be very frustrating. Hence the picture on the initial screen and the talk of the guy just throwing his fist through the computer. That's how we feel a lot of times when we're trying to grow, and we understand the pain, we've seen the pain, we've experienced it to some extent. And so part of what we want to get at today in talking about the problem of education is also help everybody to understand it is possible to optimize your learning journey. Now, the beginning of our educational journey is interesting, and I don't think we think about this a lot, but whether it was preschool was your first experience, kindergarten, whatever it was, as we continue to progress, we actually start off by somebody just dropping us off and sending us to school. Have a good day. And that's it. And we go to school because people tell us to. We're not making any decisions. We're doing the work. We're getting friends. We are building relationships. We are learning how to do reading, writing, and arithmetic, because they used to say, and we're doing the whole shebang, but we're not really engaged in that path the way that we're going to be as time goes on. So we go through our entire journey, K to 6, 7 to your junior high school years, 7 to 8 and 9, high school years, undergrad. And we go through these paths, and until we reach undergrad, we're not really making a whole lot of decisions. We make some, whether it's college prep, if you go to a school where they have curriculums for you, some people do, some people don't, some people didn't, I should say. But a lot of those things are still sort of specced out for us. And so we never give it a thought that when the time comes where now we're looking at getting into UX, and the question comes up, what do I do to further my career? What do I do to learn more? What do I do to navigate my own journey and help pave a way of success for myself? And when education becomes a part of that, and it is, it's very strange in that it's actually the first time for many people, even if you did go to undergrad, even if you did that, it's the first time that we've done it. When you really think about it, we didn't make decisions in the 4th grade like that. We didn't make decisions in the 7th to 8th grade, extracurriculars aside. This is more what we're doing now and trying to identify and optimize an educational path today for UX is completely different than what we did in the past. And so we don't realize that we have to lay a foundation and we need a strategy because we're about to do something for the first time that we have no skill in to a great extent. And to make matters worse, there are problems. There's a conundrum. There's a lot of static. The picture is not clear. There's a lot of noise. And so we're trying to not only make educational decisions that we've never made before, but we're doing it in an arena where the educational path is not clear all the time, where a lot of the venues that claim to be educating us, they're not really doing a great job at it. A lot of what people are calling education is not. It calls us to question what we really know education to be, because education is a science, just like UX is a science. Educational paths is part of what I'm learning in my educational leadership PhD. There is a huge science behind designing courses. There's a science behind designing curriculums. And by the way, not only am I getting a PhD in educational leadership, but I was an educator before I was a UX designer, and that's actually what got me into UX. So I've got 30 years of experience. I've got more years of experience in education than I do in UX. I have several certifications, including a master trainer certification and a grad certificate in educational technology from Michigan State University, where I work today. So when I talk about my being an educator, I actually am more experienced in education when you really look at it than I am when it comes to UX. So bringing a lot to the table, over 50 years of experience between the two. And there is a lot that's going on out there that people say they're educating you, or they say that they're trying to give us tips. And I beg to differ. Let's look at some examples of the noise that's out here as part of the conundrum. Have you ever seen something like this where somebody says before UX and after UX, and then they put something out here like this, and they show you these two illustrations. They don't tell you how they arrived at the second point. They just throw this out here. They, as some of us would say, drop the microphone. They feel that they've done something great, as if they've shed light on somebody, but without providing insights about how you got from before to after. Not only are you not really shedding light on what UX is, because people will do this and they'll say, this is UX. A lot of times that will accompany this, an image like this, and it's pretty popular. Not only did they just show you two images, and they're showing you this without giving you a breakdown, they are causing people to oversimplify what user experience is. That is a major problem, because it sets improper expectations for those that are up and coming. It fails to show stakeholders and your C-suite leadership how we got from point A to point B. So they end up oversimplifying what it is that we do. And so nobody ever understands the depth, and that causes a lot of problems, which we won't get into today. We'll save that for another time. But this is an attempt to educate, actually does the opposite. It actually has detrimental effect on individuals as well as the discipline as a whole. Here's an example, and I did leave the school's name in on this one. I hide this stuff sometime, but this time I got to do it because this is coming from an educational institution. So I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with Flatiron, or you've heard of that before. The reason I included it is because they are an educational resource. And I know here's a big bubble. We've already probably busted a couple of bubbles for folks. Here's one of the biggest bubbles that exists in UX. UX is not UI. UI is not UX. And anytime you see UX/UI, we're not going to say anything too crushing. What I will say is this: when somebody is saying UX/UI, that person is in need of getting more understanding about that, especially about the impact that occurs every time somebody says UX/UI. It actually reinforces stereotypes about what UX is. And today, a lot of people still don't know what UX is. So when they hear you say UX/UI, it reinforces the stereotype that we are strictly aesthetic, that we're strictly graphical. Just like that first example, that does it as well. So when an educational institution, an institution of higher learning says UX/UI, that creates a problem. And I for one have been laboring to try to get people to stop doing this for years now. And it is going to be a long road to get people to stop, because every time we get through to a handful of people, somebody like Adobe or another big company goes out there and says UX/UI, and then we got to start all over again with quite a few people. So that needs to be changed. But it contradicts what we're trying to do. And some of the ethics associated with education really get violated when somebody does something like that. This is just a screenshot that I got off of images.google.com. And really I'm drawing focus to the caption or the title. And my understanding is that that's the name of the article where this image came from. And here's one of the problems in UX when it comes to people who are doing what they consider to be educational today, whether it's a blog post, a YouTube video, or whatever it might be. These are all educational venues. And so if you're doing something educational, you have an ethical responsibility to align yourself with the purpose of education. And so when somebody violates that, then we have an ethical problem. There are no confusing roles of UX or in UX. If you see the title there, the confusing roles of UX. There's nothing confusing about UX. I know it seems like it, and I respect and I understand. Someone said earlier they feel overwhelmed, and I get you. This is the first time I've done a talk in quite a while where I didn't show my landscape of UX illustration. I think I shared it last time. I sent it out later the last time I was with you folks. But there's nothing. It is quite daunting. There is a lot that really is going on in UX, and UX is far larger than most people believe it to be, but it is not confusing. UX is as confusing to the person who doesn't have a lot of experience as economics, university economics is to a fourth grader. I almost hate to use that example, but I think everybody will get it. It's only confusing to someone who doesn't have exposure. And you can say that about practically anything in the world. It used to be that, I know a few of us might remember VCRs and probably remember it was an old joke, but it was a reality that a lot of people couldn't program VCRs. It was confusing to them, but it was because they simply weren't familiar with it. They weren't stupid. They just weren't familiar with some of the concepts. And UX is not really confusing. It's just daunting. And when somebody dives into it, it can be a little on the confusing side. But when you are putting yourself in an educational position, and you tell people, when you're in that position of authority, and you tell people that something is confusing, that's unethical. That's another illustration of the problem with UX education today. This is a really common one. Someone says the UX process. So you need to understand, research, analyze, design, launch, analyze again, not reiterate, but analyze again. Yeah, good move on that. They probably forgot about the term iterate. I actually find this one a little humorous, but that's UX nerdy humor, I guess. The person said the UX process. There's more than one process. Don't say the if there's more than one. And there are people that will have partaken of this illustration or this presentation, and they will think that this is the way that you address UX. And when you consider the fact that there's at least 7 or 8 processes, on top of the fact that once you learn process, I'm sure some of you might be familiar with what's referred to as System 1 and System 2 thinking, a fantastic book called Thinking Fast and Slow that really gives you insights into how we operate before things become second nature to us. And System 2 is when things become second nature. Once you start doing UX for a while, you stop looking at your process, your illustration. You don't pay attention to it anymore because it's ingrained, and you just do it, to the extent that actually people who've been practicing UX a while, like me, are discriminated against because we don't always illustrate process, because it's no longer a step-by-step approach. It's something that we just do, just so you're aware. But there is more than one process, and for that reason, you should never say the UX process. And if you're going to educate people on processes, then just educate people on processes. And that's it. And different companies use different processes. So it's actually overrated when you look at it, especially because everybody they reach the same conclusion at the end. You end up at the same destination. It's like people taking six directions to try to get to Disney World. That doesn't mean that one of them is right and that the other 5 are wrong. It's just that it's a different path. So make sure you understand it that way. This one might confuse a few. And this is actually a partial screenshot taken from a YouTube video where a person who is trying to share information about their journey in their UX career, and they produced a video that's on YouTube about how they became a UX director 1 year after General Assembly. I don't know, people will see this and they'll go, wow, I can become a director after just 1 year? Not really. Bubble busting. Not really. If you can become a UX director after 1 year, the only way a person could legitimately do that is to have already been working in a company for X amount of time in a different role where you understand the company. I'm talking about justifiably getting to that position. I didn't watch the video. I don't know what the person was talking about. I saw this title and became incensed immediately, because I know a bunch of people who've been doing UX for years and can't even get an interview for a title or for a UX director's role. So, and that's one of the reasons why I included this. This image, this message, this educational asset, if you will, is painting a picture that you can rise up the ranks in UX with little to no experience. On one hand, it's true, it's happening. It shouldn't be happening. And it's happening because companies, again, we'll talk about this another time, companies have poor UX maturity levels, and companies with poor UX maturity levels, in other words, UX hasn't been around a long time. They don't have a lot of people in leadership. They're not doing things the right way yet. And because of that, people get hired who shouldn't have been hired, and people get promoted and they shouldn't have been promoted. And there's a lot of chaos. And that's how you can become a UX director after you went to a boot camp. And in that boot camp, there is nothing that prepares you for a UX director's role. That's ironic. So to put this out there for people to see and to paint these false expectations that you can rise through the ranks legitimately, because if you go to the right company, you're not going to become a director after 1 year at General Assembly. If you go to a big company, you can do this at a mom and pop shop, at a startup, because nobody's there. But this should not be presented as if this is a standard or a normal occurrence. It is not. So from an educational perspective, again, it is unethical. This one, I can touch on this one really quickly, and it's just somebody, a training company, a formal educational resource, not a higher learning, but just a training institution, wrote an article about how UX icons can cause confusion. If we were interactive, if we were all in the same room together, I would ask you, what do you think is wrong with this presentation, especially after the other 5 I just covered? So I just have to tell you, there is absolutely no such thing as a UX icon. Zero. There is no such thing as a UX icon. This is a training company. A training company is coining a phrase that doesn't exist. And if you go anywhere and tell people, we need to straighten out our UX icons, they are going to look at you. Please don't do that. They're going to look at you as if there's something wrong with you. There is nothing anywhere, nowhere. There's no such thing as a UX icon. And iconography, which is what they're really addressing, and they probably mentioned it in their article, iconography, icons cause confusion. Let's drop the UX. Icons are confusing. You know, one of the reasons why? Because less than 5-10% of all the icons in existence are understood without text. People try to use icons when they shouldn't. So they're basically talking about something that's already a norm, and then they slap UX on the front of it. And that, from an educational perspective, is unethical. Let's dig a little deeper. 3 more of these types of examples, just to show you about the problem with UX education. And we'll get into some of the other ones as we go. Here, somebody is trying to illustrate the difference between UX and UI design. But here's the problem, and we're going to cover this one quickly. Here is the problem. The problem is that everything on the UI side, UX has a hand in some way, form, or fashion. We are involved with visual design. We may not produce it, but we at least want to evaluate it to make sure that the user experience is optimal. We are involved with color psychology, and we might say something. A UX professional might address color psychology because of the impact that we think that it may have upon users because of the different colors that might be used and what we know from a research perspective with those colors. We don't do graphic design, but as it is with visual design, we may want to evaluate the graphics to make sure that everything is heuristically up to snuff, to make sure that everything is appropriate. We are concerned with the layout. We are concerned with typography, and typographic principles. We are concerned with that. So according to this person, UX people aren't concerned with that. Not true at all. So they're trying to educate people about the difference, knowing the difference between UX and UI design, and the person really hasn't accomplished that at all. So thumbs down on that one. The next two, I want to show these side by side, and some of you might actually recognize these and know where they came from. I will not tell you where they came from, but I will tell you they both came from the same exact source. And you would think that there might be a bit more alignment with them, and there are two different sets of messages, so I will give them that. But the information in the first one about when it talks about, they're trying to show you the difference between UX and UI. And what they're showing here about the application, the focus, what UI creates and what it results in, UX people do all those things too. And you really have to look at them. Let me illustrate this way, because that probably won't make it too clear. We have to look at them side by side. So I'll touch on a couple of these. So the application for UX, they say that it's physical and digital products. Well, UI people work on physical and digital products too. So does that really show you a difference between the two? No, it doesn't. UX focus, the full experience on the user's first contact to the last. I find that interesting because that sounds like CX. I've never heard anybody say that about UX, but I do hear people say that about CX. I just found that interesting. And then it says that UI's focus is on the visual touch points that allow users to interact with a product. Well, UX is concerned about that as well. So there's no real differentiation there. And the first statement sounds like what we call a filler, because you don't really hear anybody saying that about UX. They say that UX create structural design solutions for pain points that users encounter anywhere along their journey with the product. For the record, for those of you that don't know, that is also CX talk. Matter of fact, almost everything that's on that side can be related to CX, which makes you wonder what they're really trying to get at here. Touch points and pain points are discussed from a UX perspective, but they're huge in the CX community. On the UI side, and yet UX too as well. Not that it's incorrect, it's just that it's interesting that it's borrowing from the CX lingo. UI creates combinations of typography, color palettes, buttons, animations, and imagery. UX is concerned with all of those things, and in some cases may be responsible for the creation of them. It does happen. And for the record, UI is actually a subset of UX, but it's not UX, and UX is inclusive of everything that goes on in the experience and not just UI. So everybody understand they're not one and the same. They should not be used interchangeably. Lastly, UX results in products that delight users with their effectiveness. UI, they say here, results in products that delight users aesthetically. UX is concerned about that as well. So the conundrum then gets furthered, because if you study this, if somebody presents this to you in an educational experience, and then you encounter somebody like me, then it's going to be, boom, you're going to go, wow, really? Because I'm going to say, no, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. And you just paid these people a lot of money to be misinformed. Not going to be happy behind that. The elements in the other, we're not going to spend a lot of time in this last one, but in this UX UI, yes, UX focuses on competitive analysis, customer analysis and user research, product structure and strategy, content development, prototyping, wireframing, testing and iteration, coordination with UI designers, coordination with developers, analysis and iteration. Thumbs up on all of those. They show an overlap between UX and UI where it comes to design thinking, aware of user needs, goal product that delights users. That's all on the UX side. That's not an overlap. The UX person might be concerned, or the UI person might be concerned. Those are all UX things. UI, understanding of UX design, process, and service, they may or may not have to. UI, these are visual design people. These are presentation layer people. All they need to be concerned with is producing what's been handed to them and making it look good. We do the bones, they do the skeleton. Or we do the bones, and they do the skin, the hair, the look, and the feel. That way. Customer analysis, that's UX. Design research, that's UX. Not that the UI person can't do research, but research is usually in the domain of UX. Branding and graphic development, that's UI, but UX is aware of it, so it's not like UX is not involved. User guides and storylines, that's more UX. UI prototyping, that's mostly UX. Interactivity and animation, UI will be greatly responsible for it, but UX still has their hand in it in some way, form, or fashion. Adaptation to all device screen sizes, that's usually UX's responsibility with help from UI, but UX is not, it's not like it's over here and it's not on the UX side. And lastly, implementation with developers. UI people will be a part of that, a big part of that. UX will all to an extent. All three of these images are not communicating in an ethical manner. They're not really educating. And this is where the problem in UX education comes into play. Really, really critical. So, and I've got a problem with my presentation all of a sudden. So here we go. All right, we got it. So when you see things like this, you wonder, okay, what is my course of action? Because all of these things are going on. It's noisy. There's a lot of static. The picture isn't clear. I've got all kinds of choices I know about where, because education is going to be a key, because it's going to help me to manage the noise. It's going to help me to understand where I need to go. What course of action should I take? Because when you walk into the room and there's 7 doors, and to you, they're all doors initially, then I've got some things that I want to walk you through that I think will help you to optimize your learning journey, because there's just way too much that's going on out here. So that means that we need to quiet things down. We need to eliminate the noise. So first, we want to talk about education economics, and I divide this into 5 key steps. Number 1, what actually are your goals? And you want to vet that out. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you looking for a job? Are you looking for a career? Have you really learned enough about UX that you really do believe and think that you want to pursue this for the next 15, 20, 30 years? Do you really want to make a commitment like that? So identify what your goals really are. If you're just looking for a job, you're just looking for a paycheck, you're going to end up with a bit of a rude awakening, because of how this is not like going to Burger King, so to speak, or whatever fast food joint might be in your locale where you live. That's a job. You just interview, you jump into the job, you do it. It takes nothing to get it going, and off to the races you go. This is a skilled position. This is something that is, there are some executives that hold positions associated with this. There are no executive fry makers, but there are CXOs, there are chief experience officers. So you're talking about a specialized type of function. So we're talking in the Midwest, a starting salary for a UX professional for the last few years, they're trying to drive it down, but it was like $75,000 a year. That's a far cry from the $30,000 or $40,000 that you get from unskilled things where you can just train somebody and throw them on the phone and let them go. So this is completely different. So make sure that your goal is realistic, and make sure that your goal that you understand what you're opting into. Next, after you properly identify what your goal is concerning UX, there are different learning modes. And so you want to consider what learning modes are out there and understand which ones you feel best suit you, which ones you feel you learn best in and that you'd be most comfortable in, and which ones will lend themselves to your schedule. What are some of those learning modes? You have what's called, and some of you might be hearing these for the first time, you have synchronous learning modes, which includes face-to-face. If you're online, you're actually meeting somebody online at a certain time, like this session today, right now, not the people who watch on the recording later, but everybody who's here right now, this is a synchronous experience. We are all together. If it's asynchronous, that means you do it on your own time. So anybody who's watching the video later, that would be an asynchronous experience. If you are in a, say, an online degree program or an online certificate program, and you just get your assignments and you do it on your time, that is asynchronous. So maybe asynchronous better suits you for the way you're scheduled. Maybe you have a family. Maybe you need to have more control over your schedule. Maybe it's not good for you to sit in a classroom for 2 or 3 hours a day. Maybe that doesn't work. Then if that doesn't work, then you don't want to do synchronous because you need something with more flexibility. Then you also have your self-study or your self-paced learning, which is more on the asynchronous side of things, but it's where you can complete things just totally. At least with asynchronous, you might have to fulfill some tasks, assignments that week, but with a self-study, self-paced, you might take 3-4 weeks to do the work. If that's what you want to do, if that's what you need to do, then that's fine. So consider the different learning modes that are available to you and make sure you factor that in. Don't just, oh, somebody is offering something, I want to go and do that. Don't just jump into it, because you may be have a rude awakening, and after that you may be out of X number of dollars, and this is not a time to throw money away. And speaking of money, consider what's your budget, how much are you willing to spend, and then another thing that comes up, investment, and this has nothing to do with the money, not completely. How much of your time, how much of you as an individual are you willing to put into this? Because one of the things about UX that people don't understand and don't get told a lot of times is that UX is still roughly 20 to 25 years old as a mainstream professional practice. So if it's only that long, then that means that when you come over on this side of the fence and join UX, you have your job, you have your team, you have the company that you work for, but you also have a responsibility to the discipline. So you always want to make sure that you're doing things that are going to benefit you, your team, your job, your users, and the discipline as a whole. That's part of whether we opt in or not to that, whether we accept it or not, that's part of what we're going for. Then you want to evaluate alignment. How much are you really aligned with what you think, the direction that you think you're going to go? Make sure that you're checking to see, okay, everything I've looked at, this really fits me. I don't think I should do that because I don't think that's going to work. I'm not ready to spend that money, or whatever it might be. Make sure that you evaluate alignment. And after you get all of these factoids, after you know what they are, after you've identified everything, make honest and informed decisions. Don't try to shoehorn yourself into something where you don't fit. Make sure you make good choices, because that's going to help you to fulfill the investment part of what it is that you're doing today and see something through to the end. You have 5 different options to choose from. We mentioned self-taught, self-paced. You can read books. You can look at YouTube videos. You can listen to podcasts. And there are people that are still doing this today. When I first started, we didn't have the bottom 4 things that you see here. We didn't have any of them when I first got into UX. So we were all self-taught and everything was self-paced. We didn't have a choice. Today, you can connect to the Students of UXD. You can join a MOOC or a massive online open course, and they're called MOOCs for short. And that's your Udemy, Coursera, edX, Khan Academy. These are all MOOCs, and you can choose to learn UX that way. It's just one of the options. You can pursue a specialization certificate. So you can go to Susan Weinshank has several certificates that are available through her online educational resource. You can, one that I'm going to be talking to them in the not too distant future, because I want to see if it's something I can recommend. Cornell University just launched a certificate program in user experience. If I remember correctly, it costs like $3,600. So you're not breaking the bank, and you're getting exposure through one of the top universities in the country. You're going to get trained in UX and have a well-rounded initial exposure to the discipline, but they will give you a certificate upon completion. And Cornell doesn't really look too bad on the resume. It looks pretty good. After that, you've got your boot camps. These are all for-profit institutions that will offer what they will call an immersion or an immersive boot camp, where they are saying that they're going to expose you to X amount of elements about the discipline. You can do that. It'll cost you anywhere from $7,000 to $25,000. The certificates through, I didn't mention this, through Susan Weinshank, anywhere from $300 to $700, if I remember correctly, on that. Some other certificates do the same thing. Also, since I'm sharing this, might as well say this now. Coursera has a UX program that they do through University of Michigan. And last time I checked, it was $49 a month for 9 months. Nobody can beat that at all. And I recommend that people enroll in that quite a bit. And you get the design and the research side from an accredited institution with people that are actually teachers, which is a problem in UX education a lot today as well. So then the boot camps, though, $7,000 to $25,000. Some of them will pay you while you go, and then they will take part of your check when you get the job. On one hand, I'll say to each his own. As other, as an educator, I'd say I highly advise against that. Letting somebody take part of your check later. That's like going to a check cashing place. Reminds me of that a little bit. And then you've got the degree program, which is going to be accredited, is going to be well structured. There's going to be heightened senses of accountability. There's usually really good course design in a lot of them, but everybody can't do a degree program, so you might have to go elsewhere. So taking that a step further and looking at expectations, and we'll talk about this again in a moment. The self-taught, if you go that way, it's inexpensive and it's immersive as you make it to be, but it is very, very slow. It's at a snail's pace. It's molasses in Alaska in the winter, slow. It's very, very slow. So just so you're aware of that. If you choose to go through a MOOC, there are lots of options available, but truthfully, only few of them are really trustworthy. I recommend the Coursera option. I really don't. I'm considering doing the same with another group, which I can't really share right now, but wanted to do something that's immersive and give people the experience that they need so they can build on it for their career. But there's a lot of things. You saw the examples that I shared with you of a lot of the noise that's out there. There's a lot of noise in the MOOCs as well, because nobody's there to validate whether or not the course materials are appropriate from a UX perspective. So can't really trust it. The specialization certifications they're immersive, they're focused, and they're a pretty good mid-level option. You're not going to get the bigger bang for your buck as you would say with the, and I'm talking about some of the smaller ones there. The Susan Weinshank certificate is good. It's dependable. It will really help you to learn about a lot. I don't know how much it's going to help you on your resume. If you go through Nielsen Norman Group, you can take those courses and then you can take a test for a certification toward the end. But we don't really know how much that's going to help you necessarily on your resume as you go forward. So just be aware of the bang for the buck. It is going to help you. There's no question about that. We don't really know how much it's going to help you when it comes to getting the jobs, how much it's going to set you apart from the competition. With the UX boot camps, they're really, really fast, 6 to 9 months usually. I've heard about some that actually like up to like a year and a half to 2 years out. Those would be better. There is one boot camp that's not, we might group it with the UX boot camps, but Curiosity Tank does a phenomenal job helping people to, if you just wanted to focus on research, you could get in touch with Curiosity Tank and they do a great job. I endorse that program. It's fantastic. It's not as fast. It's fast in comparison to a degree program. But in general, some people think it's fast because of the way that it's presented, because some of the other boot camps will tell you 6 to 9 months, and you really can't cover a lot in 6 to 9 months. Whereas if you go to Curiosity Tank, you're only looking at research. So to focus on nothing but research for 6 to 9 months, huge thumbs up on that. To cover all of user experience in 6 to 9 months, not so much. And you will end up with some problems when you go through and try to learn something that fast. And also for the cost, that's quite a bit, $25,000 for something that I can actually go on and Google and find the same information. I'm not signing up for that. And there are some pedagogy problems. Somebody's wondering, what is that? It has to do with the way that the courses are structured, the way that the content is designed. There's a lot of repurposed content copied from off of the web. And then for your $7,000 to $25,000, I don't think so. And then degree programs, they're accredited, as mentioned earlier, they're well structured, but they are expensive. So you have to decide what's best for you based on what you have to offer. With a recap of the key factors, make sure you identify your goals, consider the learning modes. You might not be, if you don't understand what one is, seek to learn more about it before, so that you don't go in there, make an investment and find out you don't like that format. Consider your budget, make sure you are invested, evaluate how well you're aligned with something before you dive into it. Evaluate your options and make sure that you make honest and informed choices. When it comes to educational options, you got self-taught, self-paced, again, your MOOCs, specialization certificates, UX boot camps, and degree programs. And there are not a lot of undergrad programs for UX. There are more and more grad programs for UX that are popping up. And I just found a PhD in UX at Michigan State University. They do have one now. So they are available, but you've got to be ready for that. You got to be ready to pay the price and be ready for the long haul. Some people don't have the patience for it. I would encourage you to get the patience because it's going to pay off for you, but it is what it is. When it comes to managing expectations, the first one saves money, but it's slow. It's inexpensive. The second one, lots of options, but generally noisy and untrustworthy. I wouldn't go that route too much unless you're going with one that a true mentor can recommend for you. The third one won't break the bank, usually well-designed, good ROI in general, not going to help a lot on your resume, but it will help you in your practice and your personal maturation. The fourth one is fast, but it's costly, cursory, usually very surface level. That's what that means. Produces lots of folks with minimal confidence. I encounter them all the time. And you don't want to go through, pay $25,000, 10 for that matter, to go through something just to later talk about having imposter syndrome. And we'll talk about that another time because I run into a lot of people that's how they feel. And a lot of people express regret for having gone through those. I even talk to people that and help them to get out of a boot camp commitment when they found out what was really going on. The most costly option of the university, the degree program, that's always going to be the most costly, but it is accredited, it is well structured, and one of the things that a lot of the other programs miss, it does enforce accountability, which is key. And with all of these, you can find a job going through any of these methods, but some of these prepare you for a career more than the other ones do, and that's where investment comes into play, because if you're invested in UX, you're after what's going to help with your career, and you're not just trying to find a job. A job is for today, a career is for tomorrow. So let's keep that in mind. So that's it as we wrap up. And then we'll take some questions. The world of UX, folks, it is complex. It is indeed complex. It just is what it is. Education can help you to navigate it. So keep that in mind. That's the value proposition for education. Interestingly, we don't usually have a sound strategy for educational pursuits because we're used to somebody laying something before us. You don't get to do that this time. With UX, you need to have a strategy so that you can make a good sound decision and don't let your zeal dictate what you run into. And that's what a lot of people are doing. They're zealous, so they just do something and everything is whimsical and it's haphazard, and whimsy and haphazard approaches don't usually pan out well in the end. So we want to help you to avoid that today. There's a plethora of faux educational resources and an abundance of options. So this makes things a bit more challenging. You can't just go in and make a choice because some of these choices are bad for you and bad for the discipline as well. Make sure you identify your goals, your learning mode preferences. You want to identify your budget. Make sure that you've got that checked out. How much do you really want to commit? And then make sure you are aligned appropriately. The challenge is identifying what best fits you. So do you have the absolute best educational and learning path? And no matter the choice, please have proper expectations. That's one of the things that's usually out of sorts today. And by the way, if you went to a boot camp, you can tell I'm very anti-boot camp. I am, but it's because of what I've seen them do and a lot of things that maybe I will dedicate one full day into showing you why. But don't fret, because we also help people who have gone through boot camps to right the ship after the fact. Because if the ship sailed, the ship sailed. But please don't fret, don't beat yourself up. And I'm not against you. I am for you. And that's why we stand up. And if I saw you about to drink some Drano, I would stop you. If I saw you getting ready to sprinkle Comet on a sandwich, the cleansing solution for your bathroom, I would stop you. If I saw you about to drink some antifreeze, I would stop you. If I saw you trying to or thinking about going to an educational resource that actually violates a lot of educational ethics, I would stop you. There's the parallel. So don't fret. We'll help you to get over that as much as you allow us. And be ready for the path of lifelong learning, because when you get into UX, no matter what program you complete, you can celebrate the completion, celebrate your graduation, but we're in this for the long haul.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that talk from 2021 for the students of UXD, and I hope you got some clarity, some insights, and some things to consider when it comes to how to optimize your educational journey as it pertains to UX. As we wrap up today, I'm going to take you out to the Kaizen Tees site, which is something I have actually bypassed in some of the more recent episodes, but I'm excited because we've got some new merch. Look at this. We've got UX, UI, no such thing. We've got a new line, folks. We got a couple of polos, one for the UX, UI, no such thing. There's a whole slew of new items there. We've got the new I Heart Pure UX polo shirt. We've got the I Heart Pure UX coffee mug. We've got UX, UI, no such thing t-shirts, UX, UI, no such thing coffee mugs. There's several UX, UI, no such thing t-shirts. There's a lot of new things out here on the site. Go out to kaizentees.com, check out the merchandise, and have fun in getting this word out. If you appreciate what we're doing on the show, you appreciate the messages that we're sharing, you understand the validity, you understand the truth of it, you understand not really in it for me, folks. I do not profit from this. Does profit come in? Yeah, but it gets eradicated by the money that we spend taking care of these things, providing these services. So it is a flat zero, at least right now. So maybe one day it'll pick up. But for now, this is just something that we just do for fun. It's something we do to help to spread messages in the community. It's something that we do to help present some truths that some people find uncomfortable, but in a non-threatening way, hoping, and I have seen people eventually come to and go, you know what? I gave it a little bit more thought and I examined it. I see what you're saying now. People who fought this very talk that I just delivered. If you go out to YouTube and see where it was presented, somebody made a comment. They said, man, what ego? It's called experience. And I made a comment and I said that humble people are not threatened by experience. I have 30 years in the discipline. I have tons of experience in education, actually more experience educating people than I do in UX. And it's sad that some people will try to demonize and castigate someone because they're experienced, because they are qualified. And the funny thing is, the people who do it, they're usually not qualified. They usually lack something. So there's something else going on there. If you want to grow, here's a little tidbit for you today. If you want to grow, appreciate people that bring something to the table, ride on their coattails, and take yourself higher. Find some giants and stand on their shoulders. Some giants don't mind you standing on their shoulders. And if you do that, you will grow leaps and bounds. If you're threatened by what somebody else brings to the table, you're always putting a cap on who you can become. Don't be that person. Please, please, please. Don't be that person. But at any rate, check out the new merch out at Kaizen Tees, and we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Until next time, folks, thanks for taking the time to partake of the World of UX podcast. Until next time, this is Darren Hood, the host of the World of UX, signing off and wishing everybody all the best. Happy UXing, everybody.